Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Chris Irving, Kratom Kingdom, Kratom in the Morning with Chris. Today I am drinking my favorite new Kratom. It's just called Super Speciosa, and it's just basically a high alkaloid content Kratom. It doesn't really have a strain associated with it, but they do sell it with strains, but on the package it's simply labeled Super Speciosa. And it is good. It's lab tested, of course, completely organic, nothing added to it, but nothing added to it extra. So all you're getting is pure 100% kratom, and they label how much of the Mitragina speciosa, which is the stuff we want from the kratom, and it's got a high concentration of it, more than most of the places that I've seen. I'm looking for here it is. And this is the stuff, and this says it's got 2,400 milligrams of Mitragina speciosa per serving, which is, if you look at like stuff you get from other, like King Kratom they sell the cheapest Kratom on the planet, and you can get huge bags of it for like $400, but you're gonna get maybe 50 to 60 milligrams of Mitragina speciosa per serving, so you're getting a lot more of it, but you're getting a lot less of it, because what you really care about is how many milligrams of the active ingredient, Mitragina speciosa, is in it. And this stuff is packed full of it. And this is all from Southeast Asia, which is pretty much where kratom comes from. It doesn't say if it comes from Indonesia, which it probably does, because in my opinion most of the really good kratom farmers are in Indonesia, because that's how they make their living, so they don't want to sell crap. The ones that I've personally spoken with, which I have spoken through on Skype, the ones that speak English, or we've used translators or whatever, but they really care about their farms. They don't piss in the farms. They don't hire lowlifes that defecate in the trees, and they only pick the best leaves, because their reputation is everything. One of them crossed me, and I paid for the kratom, but he never sent it. It was a mix. It was when PayPal was messed up, so I technically paid him, and I had a receipt from PayPal, but PayPal never gave him the money, so he thought I was trying to scam him out of 2 pounds of kratom, and so he thought I was a American scammer, which there's plenty of, and I obviously wasn't, so he never sent me the stuff. So I told him, I'm going to go on my channel and blast you by name. And he was terrified. He was willing to give me free kratom just to keep his name. That's how much they care about their farms and their names and feeding their families. And he thought it was a Muslim thing, because Indonesia is a Muslim country. But for me, I am the most liberal person you will ever meet. I guess they call us woke. And religion, to me, which I believe in strongly, but I don't subscribe to one single religion, because they're all the same. I mean, they've all got a God, they've all got a prophet, and they all have a moral for goodness. Most religions, as far as I know, want you to be good. Even though it might get corrupted and they might fight wars over it. Christians did it too with the Knights Templar and their soldiers, that conquistadors that would go out, the Spanish conquistadors, and would try to, if they couldn't change somebody, convert them to Christianity, they would kill them. And Muslims are doing it right now. They've got their war going on, and I'm not going to get political because I don't know enough about that stuff, and it doesn't affect my life that much. Kratom affects my life, and Kratom is actually affecting everybody's life. It could be a saving grace. We all know that there's this opiate problem, and the new opiate in town is called fentanyl. And fentanyl is a bad, bad opiate. It's like it's like hydrocodone on crack. I mean, it's just super concentrated morphine, and they're cutting everything with it, putting in everything, because it's incredibly addictive. And if you can get somebody high on fentanyl, they're going to choose that, and they're going to spend everything they have themselves. They're going to sell everything. And I've seen personally girls, young, beautiful 15-year-old girls, after 10 years hanging out with the wrong people, just partying and using rave ecstasy, and then they get high on fentanyl or opiates, and they, 10 years later, they're prostitutes on the street. And I had a student that I taught, and when I was a teacher, I was straight edge, and I would preach straight edge beliefs to my students. Don't drink, don't do drugs, don't smoke cigarettes, don't have sex just because of your peer pressure, because you want to be cool like all the other girls on MTV and stuff, because it will only lead you down a sad road. You're going to get pregnant and blah, blah, blah. You all know the story. Or you get sexually transmitted diseases. And this poor girl, she was the sweetest little girl. And now she's living in pay-by-the-hour hotels with her pimp. And so scrawny, and her skin is so screwed up just from being addicted to her pimp is addicted to heroin, she's addicted to fentanyl. And one super weapon against fentanyl and opiates is, you guessed it, Kratom. Because Kratom mimics the effects of opiates on your brain, but it's not. It just gives you a light sensation, which takes the edge off. Which, because the biggest problem you hear about people trying to kick opiates is they're sick and they need to get well. Well, Kratom, I've seen hardcore opiate addicts get well and stay well just drinking Kratom. And then so they go from, I've seen them completely kick because they were on probation for selling opiates. I live in the Appalachian Mountains, which is pill mill central. You know what I mean? Old people are surviving by selling their opiates that they have. This old lady with cancer, it's eating her up from the inside. The pain she must have been under was excruciating. So she got a prescription for morphine, and she would sell it $1 a milligram because she would rather go through the pain to feed her family, because she needed the money more than she needed personal comfort. And this guy that I was living with, because I was destitute, homeless, just my contract on my teaching gig ended, and they didn't want to rehire me because of my disability. And even though I did a great job, they loved me, the kids loved me. Especially when the kids found out I was in a emo band, and this was when emo was huge. Kids are all dyeing their hair black and putting it in front of their face and piercing every single thing they could pierce. And back in the 90s, that was me, and that was the band I was in, and we were very popular. And when the kids found out that I was in the band called Red Roses for a Blue Lady, they flipped the fuck out, and I still get emails from them. Mr. Irving, you're one of my favorite teachers. You changed my life. You taught me that I didn't have to do drugs, and you got me into straight edge music, and it's changed my life. Now I don't party or rave or do rave drugs or any of that stuff anymore. I don't care about alcohol, and I'm one of the coolest kids in my high school now, because I taught K through 8, and and I mean, I saw on one of my students' YouTube channel, she's like, first thing she said was, I cried, because she found my YouTube channel. And so we've been emailing back and forth appropriately, because she is very young, and she is now in high school, straight A student. She was in my special education class, because that's what I taught, with special education for kids with special needs. And she was a special ed kid with a learning disability, which lowered her self-esteem. She was at high risk for doing stupid shit like I used to do. And now she's a great kid going through college. She's at the University of North Carolina, because UNC, and I'm so proud of her, because little Maggie picked herself up from being the low kid, the cute little girl that sat at the very back of the class, didn't talk, and I let her express herself. I let her be herself, and she thought my tattoos were cool. She thought, as a teacher, teachers don't look like me, usually. I had my ears pierced at the time, and the school I worked at was a very liberal charter school, and they preferred teachers like me, who the kids could relate to more, who I could get into their brains, and especially me being a psychologist, a child psychologist, I could get into those kids' brains and see what's going on, see if it's a home problem, seeing if it's a peer pressure problem, seeing if it's a learning disability problem. For her, it was just a learning disability, and when we conquered that, when I taught her how to study the way I study, because now I have learning disabilities, and she and I became great friends, and now she's in college, and now that she's over 18, she'll tell me about adult things that she's dealing with, and she's dealing with really, really well. And she has a great relationship with her family. She has a boyfriend now, who she wouldn't date any guy that did drugs or alcohol or drink. And she's like, Mr. Irving, you changed my life. And that affected me as much as cool comments I get from you guys. But back to fentanyl. I seen this guy who was the morphine addict, who he just wanted to get well, so I was already on Kratom, so I started making him tea and giving him tea in the early morning. As soon as he woke up, I'd give him a cup of hot Kratom tea, and he was like, you know what, I'm not snotting, I'm not achy, I'm not irritated, I'm not angry, I'm okay. And I'm like, that's Kratom, and he's like, he's like, dude, it's been a week and I haven't had any morphine. And I'm like, yeah. And then we wanted to start kicking him off of Kratom too, so that he could be 100% clean. He tried the 12-step programs. Hell, I tried the 12. I went to the 12-step programs to see what their game was, because I was a psychology student, and substance abuse was always a big issue with me being straight edge. And my mom was she worked in those 12-step hospitals that the parents send their kids to. Actually, my best friend was in the hospital that my mom was at, and when he got out, he started hanging out with me, and we both were straight edge, and he was a little crackhead from South Florida, and I met him because there was a scheduled fight for after school between him and his crew and this other crew from Miami. And the Miami kids showed up. He showed up. Little Derek showed up. But Derek was like, he had cystic fibrosis, so he was like maybe 95 pounds and about 5'2". And this little scrawny kid, but I loved him to death. He had more heart, and he was dying, and he knew it. And I showed up with my little clique, and we took care of business. Afterwards, we found out that one of the guys from the gang had a gun in his back waistband, and the other one had a knife that he pulled on my brother, which was why I struck first. And kicked, immediately grabbed onto him, and we went at full-on fight mode. And his homies, Derek's homies, were nowhere to be found. They were terrified. So me and my straight edge clique and my brother took care of this Miami Latino gang who did not like the Palm Beach Gardens middle class skinheads. And I was a working class straight edge hardcore kid who believed in a better world and who was so politically correct that I wanted to eliminate Anheuser-Busch. I wanted to get rid of alcohol because it never made sense to me, and this isn't a straight edge channel, but if fentanyl could do that for Jeremy, who was horribly addicted to opiates, then after a while, I started running out of, I couldn't supply him with Kratom all the time, so I'm like, dude, you gotta start getting your own somehow. And he's like, I can't, I don't have a job, I'm ex-con, I'm not gonna get a job, my face is all tattooed. He's like, I don't know what to do, and I don't want to go back to, because drugs are easy to get, I can sell my girlfriend and get a pill. And so we're like, okay, well, let's get off of Kratom then, because you've been off of opiates now for 2 weeks, just supplementing it with Kratom, not doing Suboxone, not going to 12-step programs that are very temporary and very dependent upon the people that are there. Did not work for him, does not work for 80% of the people that go there. I mean, I'm saying it's a good thing to try, but to count on it solely, I've seen it work when people get into it 100%, and everyone they're with, it's their friends, you are who you hang out with, so if you're hanging out with a bunch of people that are hardcore against doing drugs and alcohol, like true 12-step people. So anyway, we went down from 10 grams of Kratom a day down to 5 grams of Kratom a day, and he didn't even notice a difference. Then we dropped it down to 2.5, and eventually he would go days without, he would wake up and forget about it, and now he is married, got 3 kids, lives on his own, doesn't touch drugs, doesn't even drink anymore. Has a cup of Kratom every now and again just to remind him, that he doesn't need opiates, because every once in a while he'll get a little itch, I want to lose reality, I want to forget everything, and Kratom can help you with that if you do it right. Like right now, I am under more pressure, more stress, more anxiety than a human being should have to take. I mean, I've got family problems, housing problems, financial problems, and I am surviving because of this. I'm off of all the anxiety medications now. They put me on benzodiazepines, which were okay for crisis moments, like when I'm starting to get manic and freak out and have panic attacks and can't drive or having seizures or something. But I can't count on it every single day, the government won't let me, and so the doctors tried to wean me off of it, but it sucked. I was so uncomfortable and so unhappy and so anxious all the time. After I had my 5th seizure because of panic attacks, I told my doctor, hey man, I am using this substance called mitrajoin speciosa. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, go research it and tell me if I should be taking it or not. He researched, he's like, hell, I want to prescribe it to, but it's not regulated yet, so I can't do anything about it. And I'm like, well, I'm glad it's not regulated, because as me, I can get it from a vendor online or directly from Indonesia or the Philippines or Thailand or Vietnam. Any of those countries in Southeast Asia. I don't know about Korea, though. I don't know if Korea has Kratom. But primarily Indonesia, it's their biggest product. And Vietnam actually tried to ban it because it was getting people off of opiate. Because Vietnam was where all the American vets got hooked on heroin because it was so plentiful, and everybody was selling it. And right now, the poppy fields in the Middle East, that's their cash crop. They're selling it to buy guns and weapons. But anyway, Vietnam, that was their economy, was based solely on opiates and poppy for medicine and everything like that. And then all of a sudden, these strange people that lived in the mountains that worked in rubber farms, hard labor intensive work, found this leaf on a tree that they would pull the leaf off, fold it up, chew it like tobacco. Mitrajoin speciosa would go down the throat, affect their brain. They could work harder, work longer, and feel better. So they didn't want opiate anymore. They quit buying heroin and opiates. So the opiate economy in Thailand diminished. So then they made Kratom illegal, because they would rather sell opiates than this free tree. Because they could just go out in the backyard, pull a leaf off the tree. And now it's become, in America, same thing starting to happen. The more popular Kratom gets, my favorite podcaster, Joe Rogan, is promoting it. There's a YouTube channel I would recommend all y'all check out called Harrison Morrison's Pharmacopoeia. And he's just this little scrawny, he's like 6'2", but he weighs probably 150 pounds. He's tiny, scrawny, wears these big nerdy glasses, and he's just like a super nerd. But he goes all over the world finding psychedelic substances and trying them and doing scientific studies on them, breaking them down to the molecular level. And Kratom was one of the things that he's researched, and couldn't find anything bad with it, found a lot good with it. He went and, you can learn a ton about Kratom on a deep level by watching Hamilton Morrison's Pharmacopoeia. I would recommend it. I'm not trying to take people away from my channel, but I don't know as much as this cat does, and he really got me into studying it on a deeper level. So anyway, y'all, yes, Kratom can help the fentanyl crisis, and Kratom can help get you off of opiates. And if you do have pain, aspirin thins your blood, it gives you ulcers in your belly. I used to take so much aspirin because of my migraines and toothaches that I would have blisters all over my mouth. And aspirin was not a really good substance. Unregulated, but it's a painkiller, but wasn't as effective as, of course, fentanyl and opiates. And so the pharmaceutical companies right now, back about 10 years ago, especially in the Appalachians, were making a killing selling hydrocodone, oxycodone. They were marketing it like it was the new sliced bread, the greatest thing. And they got the entire Appalachian area hooked on it. Inner cities hooked on it. Heroin addicts, because heroin is the ultimate opiate and is killing people. Fentanyl came out because the oxycodones and hydrocodones got regulated so that they weren't as easy to obtain. But heroin, because of the war in the Middle East, they're selling tons and tons of heroin to America, and it's coming over the southern border through Mexican cartels, and they're not happy with Kratom because it's not regulated and it's cheap, and people are getting off of opiates because of it. I mean, now it's still legal in every state but Alabama, and there's one more state like Massachusetts or some other state where they're not they haven't woke up from the past. They want it. Most politicians and doctors like mine want it regulated. They want it to be a prescribed medication. But they tried that with marijuana, and after a while just realized, hey, there's nothing really wrong with marijuana, so let's make it a recreational drug, just like alcohol. I mean, alcohol, I think, should be prescription only. Never understood. Somebody tell me this enigma about alcohol. To get it, they have these places, these little small places of business called bars, and you have to drive to get there. Maybe 5 or 6 miles from your house. Loud music, alcohol advertisements everywhere, and they sell this substance that you're not allowed to drive on, right? Because it kills people. It's stupid to drive on alcohol. But you've driven there. Now, how are you going to get home? They sold you enough alcohol where you can barely walk. They watch you stumble out the door, get in your car, turn the key, and kill somebody, on the streets. How does that make any sense at all? I mean, get rid of bars and just buy alcohol at home, and when you don't have to get in your car. Or bars should have to have free Ubers or free taxis or free buses in the parking lot that can take people to and from. So that it's the only responsible thing to do. How else if somebody goes to this legal place that even cops go to? I mean, I've never been to a bar. I've been to clubs because my band played at them, but I didn't drink. I drank water or energy drinks. And because of most of our fans were straight edge, they didn't like it very much when we played their venue because nobody was going to the bar and buying alcohol. The bands like Kid Rock and all those other cheeseball bands that promote alcohol, the 80s hair bands, chugging bottles of Jack on stage. The bar sales would go crazy at those venues. They could mark up their alcohol 50% and just make a killing, and then don't worry about the killing on the way home after the venue, after the concert's over or the show's over. And but our hardcore fans, early fans especially, were like me. They didn't bother drinking and thought drinking and drugs were stupid. And I can drink as much Kratom as I want, get in my car and drive and be completely 100% in control. I can't do that on cannabis. First car accident I got in was because it was spring break and I was a young kid of probably 16, obviously, and it was my first spring break where I was old enough to drive. I drove to a party, smoked so much cannabis that I could barely hold my eyes open. Driving home after having a great time with 2 or 3 girls in their pool, drove over a curb and ripped my front wheel off on this badass car that my dad made me, a 72 Camaro 350, beautiful, brand new, looked awesome, had 60s on the back, smaller tires in the front, aluminum alloy wheel, I mean, just beautiful. It was the epitome of the 70s muscle car. and it was badass, and I loved it, and I crashed it because I was high. Or I wasn't actually high, I was just hungover from being high the night before, and lost that car. Regretted it ever since. Never smoked cannabis again. Never drank. I've never once drank and driven, ever. Oh, because when I was young, my aunt was driving, and a alcoholic in a truck rammed into her, pushed her into the back of a construction truck that had sheets of metal, and when she rammed the back of the truck, or when the drunk truck driver slammed on his brake because he saw an imaginary something, a sheet of that stuff went and cut off her head. Her head fell off and rolled into my grandmother's lap. Never been the same since. She died. Last thing she saw was her daughter's decapitated head in her lap. And I watched my dad cry for the first time. And he was a cowboy. He was a man's man. Taught me how to fight, taught me how to work, taught me my morals and ethics. And he was a badass. He didn't fuck with my dad. And taught me in turn, you don't fuck with Chris. And at the time, he didn't. But when I saw him cry because of a drunk driver killed his sister and his mom, I took a vow at 10 years old, I'm not drinking. And I never drank since then. At like 21, when I became a drinkable age, I went full on hardcore politically correct straight edge. And I probably told that story 100 times, but that's who I am. That's why I don't drink, and that's why Kratom is so important to me, because it gives me the effects of drugs without fucking me up. And I do drink a lot of it because I've got a lot of problems. And I eventually, when I get straightened out, because I spend too much money on it. Like in August, I'm not going to have any because I have to either pay for an oil change for my car or Kratom, and I can't afford both. So I'm gonna have to go September with no Kratom. So I've begun the weaning off process right now, but today is like full on, and I'm amped. You can see my eyes are like and it was because I drank like 5 grams of this stuff and a cup of coffee and a glass of water, and I am like in a great mood now. My problems, I'll deal with them tomorrow, and I've got $1 on my checking account, which I'm terrified is going to overdraw because I have an Amazon Prime subscription with all these other things added to it. And at the end of the month, they start taking $4 out here, $5 out for this Shudder subscription or an HBO subscription or whatever, so that could take my $1 and make my check negative 20 by August. So I have $20 left when I get paid, which sucks. So I'm not going to be able to buy Kratom in September or in August either. I should start saving my money in August, so that by September I can afford Kratom. And so maybe I should get my oil changed this month and then get Kratom in September. I can survive a month without it. It's not going to kill me, but it's not going to be pleasant. And we'll see how many videos I make if I'm not doing Kratom with Chris, because I won't have any Kratom. So forgive me if I don't make a daily blog. I want to. This is my high point of the day, and I can talk forever. So I'm going to stop right now because I have talked forever. I covered what I wanted to cover, and to sum things up, yes, Kratom can help the fentanyl crisis and the opiate crisis by getting people an alternative and an aid very useful, healthy aid to get off of those substances. I've seen it work. Read the studies, common sense. I've done it myself. Anyway, y'all, peace out. I love you. We'll have another conversation tomorrow. Peace out.